welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, produced in partnership with the A.B. Korkor Foundation for Mental Health. I'm Terry, the creator and co-host of this podcast. I've lived with depression most of my life, and I know how easy it can be to feel all alone in the experience. I'm not alone, and you aren't either.
And I'm Dr. Anita Sands, a licensed clinical psychologist and life coach with a number of my own diagnoses, all of which bring a certain amount of anxiety and depression along with them. There is great power in shared experiences. We share our own as we engage in intimate and candid conversations with our weekly guests, exploring different perspectives on and experiences with depression.
We keep it real because depression is real. We keep it hopeful because there truly is hope, in spite of what depression tells you. Hello, Anita.
Hi, Terry. When we ask for feedback on this podcast, we often get comments on the length of our episodes. Many appreciate that we edit them to keep them short, recognizing both the limited energy and reduced attention spans that depression can bring. But we also hear from listeners who would like to hear more of a guest story or more about the research or the advice from our expert interviews. So with this episode, we're starting something new, and we really want to know what you think about it so we can decide whether to do this now and then. You can record a message with feedback at our website, givingvoicetodepression.com.
So last week's episode, number 253, was the edited version of an interview with Darren O'Lean, wellness expert, best-selling author, and co-host of the Netflix docuseries Down to Earth with Zac Efron. Today's episode is an extended version of that same interview. That's something we've never released before. It includes Darren's comments specific to mental health, as well as his broader view of wellness. And we're going to make the point here that, as always, take what you like and leave the rest for now. But keep it in the back of your mind, because there may be a point in the future where some of that information would be helpful to you and you're more open to it. So here again is Darren O'Lean in our first ever extended interview episode, giving his voice to depression. So depression, are there any questions you have about what this is, how I do this?
I'll take your lead wherever you want to go.
I'm assuming you're going to be talking more about the things you've written about in your book that's beside me. But do you have personal experience with depression, either yourself or somebody you were supporting?
Well, certainly it touches. I think it touches all of us, and it can be hard to even realize, right? So, like my mom just recently was severely depressed. I hadn't seen her or heard her depressed in that way ever in my life. And that was just more intensely in the last few months. And it is strange. It's like, it's something to where you can't necessarily put your finger on it. And then only when it's potentially more severe that then people around you may start picking up on it. But the person, I think, it's just upon them, and it can be hard to navigate, certainly having, being in it. And I think on the spectrum, we're all dealing with it. I don't think any of us escape it totally. This macro world that we live in, but we're also in a micro world in our own heads. And then breaking that down even further, the fractal elements of even your life, there can be a moment where I'm completely seeing my mind and feeling myself, this sucks, and I'm having a hard time. And I've been trying to watch that kind of the state of the world, right? And how personal that can be in terms of our depression and our mental health these days. So yeah, that's my long way of saying absolutely. My father, it affected before he passed away pretty bad. And now my mom, from my perspective, came on by way of just not taking care of herself in a variety of different ways. And it's hard to it's hard to put out a fire with a squirt gun, right? So it's getting her from a lot of different directions. So it's hard to, when your body is depressed, literally, physiologically, biologically, chemically, it's really hard to have a good mindset. It's really hard to live a great life. And really, that was the foundation. I really wouldn't say it this way, but I kind of would. The reason I wrote Super Life and the reason I wrote my second book, which I just finished, I can tell you about. The first one was really about foundational things that we need to do, should do, could do, can do, that will at least put us up on a foundational place to then have a better chance at anything. Because this modern day world has certainly created a lot of conveniences, but it also has a lot of slippery slopes as well, getting us detached from ourselves. And over time, I mean, just look at one thing in terms of ultra processed food. If you're eating ultra processed food and standard American diet, well, that's going to affect your gut. That's going to affect your microbes. That's going to affect your dopamine and your endocrine system. And it's like, you don't even know who you are at that point, because you're a victim to a body that is not functioning. It can't function under the mechanisms or the habits that you've and the foods or chemicals that you've exposed it to. So then this body is suffering, and this body is depressed, and where your body goes, your brain goes, right? So it's a very interesting tangled web.
I assume you're not saying that it's just, I don't mean just, but primarily or only diet and all of that there are biochemical, hereditary, and, traumatic childhood trauma, usually, elements that contribute to depression too.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, of course. And life is built upon, unfortunately or fortunately, built upon pain and stress and challenges and things. And then depending on abuses and exposures to trauma, that sets in motion a whole cascade of things to overcome. I think the thing that I was alluding to was really the symptomology from what I saw my father and mother. That was,
right,
of course, unresolved thing. I think everything has a stem of an unresolved pain, an unresolved trauma. And, and how big or how small and how significant it is based on whatever the million trillion scenarios for each individual person. So the self-support, mental health support is, I think, essential for every human on the planet to excavate and create and heal. We all have traumas, all of us, every one of us. You don't get out of this life without them. And then the level of resiliency, from my humble point of view, the level of resiliency that you're starting with can be looked at upon how traumatic something was, how early something was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So right. I think then coming out of it, we need support. We need community support. We need family support. We need professional support. We need sometimes medication support, for sure. And then we need nutritional support, and we need less exposure to harmful chemicals. All of that. It's like there's no one answer. No. And that's why we have to look at all of this stuff as a holism, right? And then when you drive even deeper into that, it's impossible to label what any one person should do, although look at these different aspects of their life and try to improve upon them. So for me, I would say, hey, try to improve on your sleep, try to improve on your water intake, try to lessen and lower the exposure of harmful chemicals in your environment. Try to have good relationships and be honest and things like that. Try to get some movement and exercise and go for a walk. Try to put your feet on the ground. Try to get good light. Try to go with the circadian rhythm. So from that perspective, biologically, chemically, from a human on this earth perspective, definitely want to help people in that way. And then from a professional standpoint, I have a degree in master's in psychology, but nowhere even close to being able to prescribe or understand someone's pain. And then that is kind of, I think, again, something we all should do. And people shouldn't feel bad about, hey, I'm spending time with support from a professional, from a group, from whatever, to learn about who I am and to learn about the forgiveness that I need to have for myself, to the forgiveness that I have to have for whatever traumas or people or situations. Like, I think it's just mandatory in a certain sense that in order for us to feel really connected to ourselves and truly happy, it's kind of the deal. We just need to continue to be the excavators and the advocates for our own health and healing, and shouldn't be ashamed of it at all. In fact, I think honesty with self and honesty and radically being honest with yourself and having, people in your life that you can sit down with, whether they're professionals or friends or family, that you can just kind of let out some of this pressure and let out some of these challenges is extremely important. One of the first lessons I learned in our psychology classes was Carl Rogers was just empathetic, active listening. You're not saying anything, but you're actively listening to someone, not trying to give advice, not trying to do anything other than I'm just listening to them, and I care. That I care about them and I'm listening to them. And the power in that is so immense for our health and well-being. And it's something that is too much overlooked in any situation, even if it's in a business meeting and you're not listening to someone, or, it's in a family member and you're just trying to, as soon as they're done talking, you just want to babble your point of view. No one's listening to each other. So anyway, I've also gone on long enough at this point, but this important, powerful topic.
It absolutely is. Well, I always quote one of my favorite quotes, that our bodies do not really differentiate between being heard and being loved, that it feels the same to us. And imagine the immense power in making someone you might not even know feel loved. How do we pass on that opportunity? But very many people do, because they think they have to have something profound to say or right to say, or here's what you need to do, or these are the 4 ways to, and that always makes me kind of wild because you can't know.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you said that, because there are so many, and I'm going to go gender here and say particularly among the men I interview who tend to be embarrassed to need therapy. And it may be the only place you can be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in a conscious men's group for probably 5 to 6 to 7 years at this point. And we have a licensed therapist, but he's not necessarily giving advice. He creates this professional space, but we're all friends at this point. We all know each other's triggers. We know our patterns. We can call each other out, but it's also a safe place to completely let it rip. And these guys are all there to be a better person. And so it's been extremely valuable, because you can't bullshit yourself when you have all these mirrors around you. I think those things, and listen, stigmas around I have a therapist, or it's therapy, or whatever it is, that's also a pathology of like caring what other people think. It's like you're just trying to be a better version of yourself and letting go of things that are causing you unnecessary pain moving forward in your life, right? So I think one of the most powerful things that was actually given to me by probably 20 years ago, I was studying with a Toltec shaman, and we would go out in the world and we would observe people, and he was kind of getting me in touch with the energies of things, right? And there was this thing that the Toltecs would always do, and that is, when you get rigid, you believe you are this person and this situation, and then it solidifies what they used to call, or still call, the assemblage point. So I am Darren. This is what happened to me. This is who I am. So you create an identity that isn't necessarily true. Am I really just a Darren? Is that truly the totality of me? Am I the past traumas of my life? No, those are things that happen, those things that occurred, and there are potentials underneath them that can and often do liberate us into a different way of thinking and being. And this idea of recapitulation is going back in time and space in your mind and taking back the energy where you feel it was either taken from you or robbed from you, or a decision that you made or someone else made that perpetrated a pain. And so they believed you could go back into your vivid imagination and recreate the scenario as you would want it to happen, or as the healing of it can happen. And they believe, I believe this too, because we bleed that energy. That's not, we haven't fully reclamated that place yet. So it's we're carrying, call it the baggage, right? That we're carrying with us. But when you go back and you can potentially recapitulate that and liberate yourself from being stuck in those areas, right. I still find it spontaneously happens to me today, where all of a sudden something will trigger. It just happened. I was on a call with a doctor. It was a neurosurgeon, but they were talking about some emotional release stuff. And just by them talking about it, I started naturally recapitulating some traumatic stuff, not like horribly traumatic, but some painful stuff in my life. And it just naturally happened while they were talking to me. And then I ended up telling them right after they finished. And it was already creating healing, kind of connecting dots where there was a misalignment or an idea or thought or concept that wasn't true. And oftentimes that's what's happening. We have solidified a lie and are carrying it forward as if it's the truth of who we are, right? And oftentimes that pain or an abuse or whatever, we take on all of that pain of probably that other person that was perpetuating that pain onto us and causing us real pain. And therefore now we've taken that on and are carrying that with us when it was never ours to begin with. But it doesn't mean that what happened didn't happen, but what it is the pain can be liberated. And then underneath that too is also seems to always be an opportunity of that is within the healing part of that too. It's like when we get to see the pain and forgive ourselves and others, oftentimes it can lead to a great gift as well.
Absolutely. Especially, the inner child issue, if it was at a younger point in your life where those things were happening, and now we're so much more able to handle it. It's like, it can be a little bit scary to go back there and kind of excavate it, but it's like, I'm not afraid of you anymore, or you don't exist anymore, or whatever it is. And you can reclaim that, which is a nice thing. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was because you say, once we believed our genes were our destiny, now we're learning we have more control over them than we thought.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point. It's like you already are dealing with something that's immense. So you want to try to do those things that you have control over to give yourself a better opportunity to manage it and deal with it. And so, yeah, supporting your body in a natural way and a natural rhythm, instead of, you don't need to push up 10 boulders uphill. Let's let nature, let's let, in this case of sleep, the circadian rhythm of all of life, let's let that help you rather than go against it. Sleep deprivation will make anyone just completely lose their own mind, right? So we know that sleep is immensely important, and there's no drug, there's no food, there's no supplement, there's no biohack that can hack around not sleeping well. And so sleep is all about the night before, right? So mitigating artificial light, obviously you're not going to go to sleep right when the sun goes down anymore, but quickly, you don't want to stay up typically past 10 o'clock, starts to create some problems. So minimizing the blue light, the computers, the iPhones, the television, the stimulus stress of that, starting to shut that down. 2 hours before bed is great. Hour, just something. Start reading instead of watching television. So then that sets you up to then fall asleep, and that's where the natural drip of the melatonin and the pineal comes in, and then that's really allowing for the restoration of your brain, your central nervous system, the repair, really dropping into parasympathetic instead of we're always stimulated now, overstimulated in the stress response. And then try to really try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Anything shy of that, things are going to start getting derailed. And the science is absolutely clear on that. So 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Kids, let them sleep. I'm not talking like teenagers. You want to start, not having them sleep 12 hours a day and stuff, right? So that will start causing, right? Kids, let them sleep. Their bodies, growth hormone, estrogen, testosterone is flying. Their bodies are repairing and growing, and let them sleep. But us as adults, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, don't compromise that. And then in the morning, I really like to slowly, I have natural, I have lava lamps, I have candlelight. I really let all of that happen. I don't even turn on a regular light until the sun's up. So for me, and then when the sun is up, another thing that you can do, again, we're talking about getting in flow with the circadian rhythm, because what's connected with that is not just sleep, all of your endocrine system, your metabolism, your energy systems, your detoxification systems, your elimination systems, it goes on and on and on. So what we're really trying to do is tap into our ancestral way. So before 10 a.m., try to go outside and get natural light without sunglasses on. Get that natural light. You don't want to stare at the light. You don't want to stare into the sun, but just get natural light in. And then put your feet on the ground and dump some of the electrical pollution that we have around us and fill yourself up full of it. Happens instantaneously, the electrons from the earth. Now you've set yourself, you set your battery, you've set your central nervous system, you've set your endocrine system up, you've set your pituitary up. Now that is a whole thing that you don't need to think about, but it's just ancestral and common sense. And that's one thing you could do to really step into, the support. And again, I can't stress enough, the hormones, the endocrine, the pineal, the pituitary, the master glands of your entire body systems are now being influenced in a positive way. And if they're not, and then coupled with how you're eating and not being hydrated and eating ultra processed food, then that creates just a further and deeper exit from our natural way of living. So again, I just want to provide a space for the body can have its best shot, because then when you fill it full of that nutrient density of not only food, but of light and of hydration and clean water, now you've got an infinitely better shot at stabilizing and utilizing and up-leveling your mental health.
So nutrition. When I think of nutrition and when I think of depression, they don't tend to go hand in hand. What can somebody who has very little energy and perhaps very little belief that they are even worth the effort involved in making themselves a healthy meal, what can you do to be providing your body with what it needs and that will help your mental health, factoring in the real loss of energy?
Yeah. Nature's packaged food, I think, right away. So like I'm thinking apples, oranges, dates, berries, like the things that are so delicious and so satisfying already. Eat whole fruit, eat whole food, find deliciously ripe strawberry and a date and berries and bananas, and like, tell me that isn't just delicious. But you have to set yourself up for success, right? So if you don't have that around, then make it available to yourself and go get it, and start to eliminate some of the other addictive foods. We have, unfortunately, decades of science that's going against us, that's supporting you and my addictions for ultra-processed food. So there is a science to them wanting you to keep reaching for the cookies and the crackers and the sugar, salts, fats, isolated chemicals, all of that stuff. There is so in one sense, we were all born into this. We're all a quote unquote, I don't believe in victimization, but we were all born into this platform in a variety of different ways. And it is not in our best interest to follow that way of eating. So certainly, I mean, think about, the life-giving food, the whole food, the transmutation of light is how fruit and vegetables are made, and the upregulation of minerals and vitamins, and they come together to create, through carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, to make these incredible delivery systems for nutrients. And I don't think nature got it wrong. I think nature already created candy. It already created the dates and the figs and the berries and the cherries and the grapes and the bananas. It's like this is Eden. We are here. Eden is here. Where we made a left turn is believing that stuff is not enough, that some other packaged thing is the way. We've subsidized and flipped the model completely in the wrong direction. We should be subsidizing whole food in areas that don't have it. We shouldn't be subsidizing meat and dairy in the fast food industry, which is happening. So understanding the game is important. And they are making you an addict, right? So if you've been used to consuming that, let me just add a layer of understanding. You have then changed your environment, your microbial environment. You've changed it because what you put in changes the ecosystem, and it pushes out certain beneficial bacteria and fungi and replaces it with not so beneficial. They don't care because they're just responding to the environmental impact of whatever you shoveling in your mouth. So keep in mind, that is a very powerful mechanism. Those microbes that you've now replaced with others continually want the same sugar, fat, salty, crappy processed food. So you are going against something that works on the speed of light. It's called biophotonics. It's communicating. Those microbes are communicating to your brain, getting you to think that that's what you want because they want to keep thriving off of the environment you created. So when you start shifting out of the microbiological environment you created and started eliminating the ultra-processed food and including more of nature's candy of whole fruits and vegetables, of course, too, but I'm just using the fruits as nature's candy idea. When you start changing that, now those microbes start changing, and there may be a period of time where it's not as comfortable, right? But it will happen quite quickly. They know that within days, your microbial allegiances are changing. If you're eating like an amazing bowl of fruit in the morning, and then you do that the next day and the next day, it's already changing. And now the more you do that, the more you're actually going to assimilate the food that you're continuing to eat. Now those microbes, those beneficial microbes, are starting to do the same thing that those not so great microbes are doing. It starts calling out for that same good food. So now you flip to the other side. Your cravings start to go away. You start to upregulate all these beneficial neuro benefit of dopamine, serotonin, all of this. Listen, the gut and the brain are almost exactly the same neural network. When the fetus is being created, the brain and the stomach split, and they're connected. They're always connected. They are the same. And so we are getting more of the neurological benefit of their central nervous system and how we feel from our gut. So if we are in a depressed state, if we are in a place where we're not balanced, there is no way that you can truly heal if you don't address the gut, if you don't start going towards reclaiming the ecosystem in the gut. Now, listen, if you need medication along the way and professional help, go for it. We all need help to get to certain places. And then as that process, in my opinion, as you're getting balanced and getting support, you continue to build your body. You continue to start eating well again. And then now, again, you're having billions and billions of years of evolution of your microbes now in support of the same thing you want. And that is a beneficial balance to your entire ecosystem as opposed to this opportunistic group of bad bacteria that was only adapting itself based on some choices you were making. None of these food manufacturers give a shit about you. So let's just be clear. They don't care at all. They are just interested in profit. All of these agencies have failed us. And I'm not out to make them wrong. They've just failed miserably. So our FDA, our USDA, even our FCC, our EPA, they failed us. And yeah, they're doing some good work on some other areas, but they failed us as individuals. So we have to take this power back and continue to move in all directions so that we can have the best opportunity for the best life possible.
The whole time you're talking about bad enzymes and bacteria and microbes, the metaphor of depression kept coming to my mind because, those thoughts do not want you to improve upon them. It's like how it gets its hold is that you believe you're worthless and you are a burden and all of those thoughts. When we start supplementing our brain with, what? That's not true. My children love me, or whatever it is that makes you feel like you have a place in the world. The more we feed ourselves that as well, the more we start chasing out the negative.
Totally. 100%. It's I like this analogy of as within, so without, as above, so below, right? It's basically the same principles of micro equal the macro, right? It's the same thing.
So let's talk about hydration and then the role it plays, because I was surprised. As I was reading your book, I was like, oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. Because it's really easy to be dehydrated without even knowing it. They say when you're thirsty, it's too late.
Yeah, it's such a tricky one because the body can shift into this dehydrated state pretty easily and then just keep going. I think the stat is close to a third of the entire country. No. Take that back. 10% of the entire country doesn't even drink an ounce of water a day, right? So I think it's around 7 to 10%. And then it goes up from there. People maybe drink 1 glass of water, or the common thing is they reach for some sort of energy drink, and coffee obviously is the number one beverage on the planet. So they reach for coffee because they need energy. So the number one by far, side effect of dehydration is a lack of energy. So you can be severely dehydrated for your entire life and you don't even know it. And the brain and the very powerful reptilian brain is, okay, you haven't drank enough water, but I'm going to shift that awareness back so that you're not so consumed by your dehydrative state that we're going to supply you enough energy so that you can find more water, right? So it's very, very, very deep. Plus, the mechanism and the hypothalamus is that when the mechanism of hunger and thirst are very interconnected. So most people reach for the triggered sugar, salt, and fat, when in fact they should be drinking water. So an easy hack is, before you start eating a bunch of food, just drink a little glass of water. Don't chug a bunch of water, try to make up for it. Just a nice small glass of water before you eat every meal. And that's a nice way. And upon waking, the information around dehydration and pain is very, very connected, right? So if you're dehydrated, the body will steal water and keep blood, obviously, is number one, central nervous system, number one. All of these deep mechanisms of organs that will keep hydrated as much as possible and then starve the rest. So your skin, your joints, all of that stuff can be severely affected with dehydration, and pain can be a side effect of dehydration. Yeah, and obviously energy and thought and everything else and clarity, and so again, we get used to how quote unquote we feel, and that isn't you, that is the state that you're in.
An audience of people with depression. Anything, if you're summarizing what you have learned, what they need to hear?
Well, again, I don't like to make it more complicated than it is, because I really believe in creating that strong foundation, really looking at this from a food perspective, a water perspective, a nutrition perspective, and now this other layer is eliminating toxic and chemical exposures in your life. And then please get help and just eliminate this idea that that's not okay for you. Like, this is your life. This is yours. This is it. So if it sucks right now, then okay, it sucks, but this is it. So let's go. Let's get some help. Let's go do it. And then start building your life the way you want it. And I would say also, if you have an inkling of ability to dream, let yourself dream. And what I mean by that is, I know you may not be able to see it or even really feel it yet of what you want your life to be. But if you give yourself the permission to at least perceive it and maybe write down a goal or something you want, then that creates a hell of a possibility and a target and a carrot for you to reach for, because I really believe in the power of creating that opportunity, because once you start reaching for that hope, it begets more hope, and it begets more openings and more possibilities, and then that keeps going. And no matter how you need to get there, don't be in judgment of yourself. You need medication, if you need to see a professional, then go freaking do it. And then you might find yourself, okay, I feel great, let's go over here. Just always be looking to figure out how you can thrive for you. So give yourself the permission to dream. What do you want? What do you want your life to be like? How do you want to be? What do you want to feel like? And the whole idea here is you don't get to know how you're going to get there yet, but giving yourself the ability to dream is a hell of a way to start.
Just want to remind people to please leave a comment if you'd like to hear more extended interviews like the one that you just heard, or if you prefer our edited roughly 20-minute versions that we've been doing since 2017. And a reminder again, please take what works for you, leave what doesn't. There's no right way or wrong way to decide what can be helpful for you. This is your journey that you're on.
And the comment in terms of whether or not you like these longer interviews can be left at our website, givingvoicetodepression.com. And in the upper left, there's a record us a message button. So we'll be back next week with an interview with Todd Rennebaum, who is, among other things, the author of the book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. And we're going to talk about how you normalize all illnesses so that your family, and in particular your young children, can understand the validity of your experience and how they can support you when you are in a depressive episode.
Sounds great.
So thanks, Darren. Thanks, Anita. And we'll be back next week with a new episode.
We truly hope that our podcast brings a little more understanding, helps you better articulate and reflect on your own experience with depression, or better understand how to support someone else who is struggling.
If this episode has been of comfort or value to you, know that there are hundreds of others like it in our archive, which you can easily find at our website, givingvoicetodepression.com. And remember, if you're struggling, speak up, even if it's hard. If someone else is struggling, take the time to listen.